my son's mandrakes. So he slept with her that night. So,
That doesn't make him a very strong character. I mean, if
Yeah,
a woman
it-
can
it's
go out there,
strange.
if a woman can go out, a sister-in-law can go out there and say, I paid for you to sleep with me tonight. I mean, can you imagine anybody in our society? Pretty strange.
it is very strange because we believe one husband, one wife. When you have multiple wives, is it really surprising that this happens though? When you have multiple wives? Is it surprising that there's jealousy among the wives? No. So, apparently, you know, in a lot of situations like this, they bargain for certain things. Whether we think it's right or not, obviously, they don't have a problem with it. Which is one reason why God said one man, one woman. Jacob doesn't argue with Leah. He says fine, and he sleeps with her. Verse 17. This is interesting. God listened to Leah, and she became pregnant and bore Jacob a fifth son. Then Leah said, God has rewarded me for giving my maidservant to my husband, so she named him Issachar. Now this one's kind of strange too. I mean, some of the logic here is really tough to follow as far as what they're thinking and what they're doing. What's God's reaction to Leah going out and gaining access to her husband to have a child? Does God go along with it? He gives her another son. And
you know, we don't have a record that she asked, but he listened to her, he knew her heart. She wanted another child, and he blessed her.
yeah. And once again, this is another example, and I mentioned this last week. There are several examples in these chapters where God is the one that's responsible directly for allowing pregnancies to even happen. He is the one that makes it so that it happens, and that so that the children come along. We have other examples in the earlier parts of the book of Genesis, with like Rachel and other people too, where God directly is involved with women being able to have children and get impregnated and give birth to children. So it happens a lot in the Old Testament where there's mentions of this happening this way. And the question, I think, is a relevant question to ask today. Does God do that today? Every pregnancy that happens, is God involved in it? Does God ordain it without us even knowing about it? Is it possible? I think all agree it's certainly possible. Does he do it that way, or does he let things happen by chance? Who knows? It does seem like there is a precedent that he does do it, but does he do it in each and every case? I don't know. But it's interesting that he does it in so many cases here, and he has very good reasons for doing it the way he's doing it. We know for a fact that there are children already being born in the Old Testament back here with Esau and Jacob. The children, before they were even born, what does God know? What does he know about the two
what
boys?
their path of life is going to be.
Huh?
What their life path is going to be.
Yeah, what their life path is going to be, because he's an eternal God. He sees the past, present, and future as if everything is now, and he can see things as they happen ahead of time. So he knew this was going to happen, and you can just see that God has his purpose in planning in all these things that are outside the time frame that we live in. So to question God about all these things is an exercise in futility, because his knowledge is so vast that we couldn't even begin to understand why he does what he does. So things are very complicated from a perspective of God. So God listens to Leah, and she gives birth to a child. Verse 19, Leah conceives again and bears Jacob a sixth son. Then Leah said, God has presented me with a precious gift. This time my husband will treat me with honor, because I have borne him 6 sons. So she named him Zebulun. And sometime later, verse 21, she gave birth to a daughter and named her Diana, which Diana comes up later on in the book. So, how many children does Rachel have altogether? 6 boys and at least 1 daughter that is named. And how many children altogether are there in the family when it's all fine and said and done? 12. That's the 12 tribes of Israel are brought forth from this family and these couples that are having these children. So there's 2 main wives and 2 concubines in the mix for these 12 children. And when she has this 6th child, what's her what's her mindset after having this child? What's her reaction? That why God did this? Huh?
Her husband's gonna like her now.
Yeah, her husband's gonna like her now. Does that really happen? Probably not. But it does say something about who she was. So before we go any further with the section on Rachel, I came across something in a commentary. This was a Burton Kaufman commentary. I'm going to read something he said. And I don't know if I agree with it 100%. You may not either. But he has some interesting thoughts about this narrative. It says, concerning Leah and Rachel. This is an appropriate place to consider the character of these 2 mothers of the 12 tribes. Without doubt, Leah was the stronger and more suitable wife for Jacob. That must be allowed as the reason God permitted the deception and the greed of Laban to succeed, thus making Leah the principal wife of the patriarchal family. Her preeminence consisted of the following. She was the actual mother of 6 sons, half of the 12 patriarchs, and a daughter. Her son Judah succeeded to the headship of the chosen nation through whom the Messiah was born. Her posterity became the principal element in the true Israel, following the defection and loss of the northern tribes of Israel. David the king, who gave his name and title to Christ himself, the son of David, was her descendant. She was the first and therefore the lawful wife of Jacob. Her son Judah gave his name and title to Christ, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. She is here mentioned first and was last buried by Jacob's side in the cave of Machpelah at Hebron, presumably before Jacob's descent into Egypt. Now, that last point is interesting too. Abraham bought a plot of ground on the field of Machpelah for what reason? Do you remember? Yeah, this is the only piece of land he actually owned in the Promised Land.
It was to bury Rachel, wasn't it?
Correct. He bought a cave and the land around it as a burial place for his wife Rachel. So all of Jacob's wives, which wife got buried in the cave of Machpelah? It's only Leah. Rachel was not buried there. She was buried. Does anybody know where she was buried? Actually, the New Testament kind of tells you. She was buried near Bethlehem when she died. And that's where she said, there's actually, I have it on my slides. Actually, I'll show you the place. I wasn't going to do it now, but I guess we could. There's 2 pictures, I think.
How far is it?
Is that 1 or 2? One more. Okay, that's the tomb of Rachel. There's one other shot. And this is a shot as if you look back in time. Those are pilgrims going by the tomb. This is the actual tomb of Rachel, which is near Bethlehem. And when we come to the death of Rachel later on, I'll explain that there's some significance to that location And there's some mention in the New Testament of that particular area. So Leah is the only one that's actually buried with Jacob in the tomb. Isaac and Rebekah were buried there, as well as Jacob and Leah. So that's his thinking of why Leah should be the predominant wife. He goes on and mentions a few things about Rachel, but her significance is less because she had fewer children, for one, and there was more. She really only has 2 children as a result of this, of the 12. So, and we'll talk about those later on when we get to it. So, do you guys agree with any of what he said, or do you think there's some truth to it, or do you think there's some disagreement you have with it, any of it? I wasn't sure if I agreed or disagreed with all of it, but so, all right. So, verse 22. Then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and opened her womb once again. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son and said, God has taken away my disgrace. She named him Joseph and said, may the Lord add to me another son. There's several things we could say about this too. Once again, who made the pregnancy possible?
Lord.
The Lord. I mean, how many cases is out in the history of the world where God is so involved? And the biggest one by far, where God's influence affected the world in the biggest sense, which birth was that? Christ. So he was involved with that one. So God remembered Rachel. I don't think that really means he forgot her, but he finally decides the time is right for her to have a child, and he opens her womb, and she gives birth to a son, and her reaction is God has done what?
Taken away her, kind of basically forgiven her, taken away her disgrace.
Yeah. At that time, if you didn't have a child, especially a male child, it was very embarrassing for a woman. It was hard to live with it. It's sad to say, it doesn't really, in God's eyes, we're not any less or greater if we have children or don't have children. But unfortunately, a lot of people put everything they have into this mindset, and we really shouldn't think that way. We need to realize that our mission in life is not necessarily to have children. It's to serve our God, to love him, to obey him, and do what he asks us to do. So we shouldn't get our self-esteem from having children. It is nice to have children, and there's nothing wrong with having children, certainly not. And there's nothing wrong with having a desire to want children, but it is not a necessity for personal happiness. You can certainly live without that. And many people have indeed done just that. Now, she feels like her disgrace has been taken away. And what does she name him?
Joseph.
Yeah, and that means what? There's a meaning behind that name. It goes right in, it says, may God add to me another. So when she has the one son, instead of praising God, what's her reaction? What does she want? Wants more. Is Rachel ever going to be happy? I think if she had 20 children, she'd still be upset. And there's just, when I look at this whole chapter and you consider all these things, it's really sad in a lot of ways that the jealousy between the two sisters, Jacob's coldness to Leah, and Jacob even later on does this favoritism thing with his children, just like his parents did. And how well did that work out? Not very well. And that was with Joseph and Benjamin, who comes along a little bit later. But Jacob does the same thing. He plays jealousy. Jacob is definitely a man who worships God. The whole family clearly does believe in God and they worship God, but they have a lot of other personal issues going on in their lives. What's interesting to note is what kind of person does Joseph turn out to be? Good, bad, indifferent. Really good. I mean, he turns out to be an amazing person. Somebody God truly respected and honored and took care of. It's sad to say, though, Rachel dies when Joseph is 11 years old. So he only had a mother for 11 years as far as Rachel is concerned. Because when she has another child later on, she dies in the process of childbirth. So nonetheless, Joseph turns out to be an incredible individual. And that the whole incident with Joseph, which you get to later on in the book of Genesis, is a turning point for the whole family. You think they're all messed up now, right? Nobody's going to deny that they're all messed up. But I'll tell you what, by the end of the book of Genesis, there is a rebirth of this family to become far more spiritual than what they are. And it was probably because of all the hardships they went through. They didn't learn their lessons right away, but in time, they learned to grow spiritually, and their relationship with the Lord improved tremendously. You just look at the story of Judah and how he reacts in the situation when they get in Egypt and stuff. The story is, and we'll get to it in time, but this family is growing still. They're a mess right now. The one thing they got going for them is what? They believe in the Lord. They're trying, but they're not very successful at it from time to time, and they're making a lot of mistakes. And we have to acknowledge that it's interesting. The scriptures, does God hide the fact of his people sinning? No. He puts it right out there for everybody to see, and we can all see what happens. But what's great about it is we can see as time goes on, many of the stories in the Bible, you can see tremendous growth as the years go by and people mature and the relationships get stronger with the Lord, which is the same thing all of us are dealing with in our lives right now. So any questions or thoughts about what we read today? We'll stop right here. All right, we'll see you next week.
I've only been on.
What I want to tell you, Rick, you got time or you got just. Probably.
And you just keep repeating. Oh,
The first thing. I wish that she did a
part of their
She got
they
caught
were
up. A lot of things happened
but
back in the
I think it
At
was
least by the 2 years. She did. That's
because that brother, you know, they started playing them.
Well, it's been a long time.
He always
Whatever.
goes on the biggest for that year.
So,
He always goes on the biggest.
so
Now,
she did 6.5
where
hours.
you're at on the ship and stuff makes a
Now,
difference.
thank you, appreciate
We
it.
were on the 74.
So this she made a note, she'll come back
Yeah, I would.
Thursday or Friday. She did come back Friday. And
And
so this is what she did on
entertainment.
Friday.
One of our
These items right here.
was a group
Now,
of rain.
one thing she did, she
But
cleaned
they
our
got
tables
beetle
and chairs.
imitators. They flew in
I'm gonna tell her.
on the ship to entertain and flew out.